So today we get our first confirmation of some of the changes coming from the Battlefield 1 open beta. DICE developers have been saying on Twitter ever since the beta ended that they're working hard on changes and fixes that people reported, and today they've dropped a small blog post detailing some of those high-level changes. One of them is something I think will make a lot of people happy, and the others are definitely ones that the community called for. At this stage, it's really important to communicate those changes so people can be reassured not only that the bugs people reported are indeed being fixed, but the developers over at DICE really are listening to the feedback that we're giving them. Without further ado, let's get into it. First of all, let's talk game modes. The beta included two of them: Conquest, a classic Battlefield mode, but with a new twist and different rules, and then Rush as well. Both of the modes were, let's say, not to everyone's liking. Conquest had been redesigned so that the old system of ticket bleed had been removed. That's where you decrease the enemy team's score if you held the majority of the flags, and kills had been removed from the scoring system as well. The only way that you could score points was to capture the objectives, and lots of people felt that this removed a certain amount of skill from the game mode, where somebody who was very good with their weaponry could no longer have a direct effect on the score of the mode. You could essentially look at it as domination large. And while that was built almost to be foolproof for anybody new coming into the Battlefield franchise, it definitely rubbed a lot of people up the wrong way. DICE have taken that feedback on board, and they're reintroducing kills counting towards the score in a game of Conquest. This will now allow any player killing another on the enemy team to have a direct effect on the score in the match, and assuming this is what DICE have done, allow the medic class to become a lot more powerful again. In older Battlefield games, reviving a player refunded your team with a ticket onto your score, meaning you could push your score back upwards with a series of good revives, possibly even keeping your team in the match. Now that the medic has a proper reason to revive people because they can directly affect the score, we may see a lot more of them running around on the battlefield when the game releases. Along with this change, the medic HUD is being updated from the beta, where the old revive icon wasn't present. The messaging around the revive and respawn systems is being completely reworked by DICE, and we'll see that in the final game. As for the other game mode, Rush, DICE haven't specifically commented on what they're tweaking here, but they have confirmed that the mode needed some work. I think we can all agree that the new defensive artillery system was less than well explained, and more people in the game probably didn't even know that you could call in artillery on the attacking team. Hopefully, this is one of the points that was worked on, along with the presence of vehicles in the game mode as well. Now, I'm mainly an infantryman, so maybe I'm a bit biased here, but the beta map didn't really work very well on the open areas of Rush when the tanks got involved. They were so powerful against infantry that it became a little bit ridiculous after a while, and to give a tank to either team on the first set of objectives, I think isn't a good move. The first set of objectives should always be the easiest to take, and the last set of objectives should always be the hardest to take. So I don't think the balance was really as good as it could have been there. It is nice to hear that Rush is getting some love. It's probably my favourite Battlefield game mode, and to see it continue to fade away since its near perfect implementation in Bad Company 2 is saddening. But there is hope, and you know, Battlefield 1 could be the perfect scenario for Rush to become a very good game mode again. The progressive nature of World War I, with you moving up on the front lines, could be a really good implementation for Rush, so I'm excited to see what they've changed. Along with those notes about the game mode changes, which are extremely welcome, there are mentions of DICE changing some of the weapon and vehicle balancing to make everything feel a little bit more even. Everyone's favourite powerhouse from the beta, the light tank, is definitely getting some work. Anyone who used it will know that yes, it's designed to be effective against armour, but it was also to focus on infantry. And I think we can all agree that against infantry, it was extremely powerful. The secondary weapon on the default loadout, the canister shell, was almost a one-hit kill at any range as long as you could line up the shot correctly. That's clearly a bit too powerful, and even its movement speed was a bit fast as well. Again, DICE haven't gone into detail with their changes to the light tank. I'd like to have seen a bit more information on this, but it is welcome to hear that they got our message loud and clear. Also, the horses will be receiving some attention. The feedback was that horses could take too many rounds before being taken out, so DICE will be reducing the amount of hits needed to kill the horse, but it's a very difficult balance to strike as the player on the horse has a separate health value. I think with time, with the horses in the final game, that will give DICE more data as to how the horses are actually used. Whether people try and use the saber to kill people, or whether they simply just trample them into the ground. That extra data on different maps and different game modes will allow them to get a good overall view. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see them tweak this further after the release of the game. It's something that might take a little bit of time to get right, but at least they've listened to our feedback from the beta that horses were just ridiculously powerful. Moving on to the weaponry, the gadgets, and the levels at which you needed to be to unlock them. Now, DICE recognised, perhaps from the ranking system being completely broken in the beta, that players didn't feel like they had the necessary weaponry to be effective against armour. Early enough in the ranking system, that is. The AT rocket gun, arguably the best weapon to use on Sinai to take out armour from a safe distance, was locked away at a higher assault rank, and instead players were left to use the anti-tank grenades and the dynamite, both of which required you to get closer to the armour, and the majority of the time that would lead to your death. It sounds like DICE are going to be moving some of those gadgets and weapons around a bit to provide a bit more of an even balance to the ranking system, and not just locking all of those useful weapons back in the higher ranks. This is a change I think we will need to see in practice, as lots of other maps will provide completely different combat scenarios, where you can use different gadgets and different weapons to be effective. It seems like the support class is getting some love from the beta as well. Something is being added to the class to combat vehicles directly. The quote is, "A gadget for the support class which should help neutralize powerful vehicles." This was something that was very apparent in the beta. The support class had no direct counter to the armor on the map, and really your first instinct was to turn around and simply run in the opposite direction and try and take some form of cover. The support class needed love, and hopefully DICE have solved that issue. Along with the fixes to the HUD for the medic class and its revive mechanic, we should see both of these classes become a lot more helpful out there on the battlefield. Overall, some good changes here, but I would have liked it if DICE went into a little bit more detail about the changes they've made from the beta. Now, the community loves seeing changes made based on their feedback, and maybe focusing on some of the more specific things would have been something good for DICE to do. Now, I understand that the whole team have a lot of work ahead of them. They've got to make sure the launch is as good as it can be, but these small changes could be the ones that some of the community reported during the beta, and they want to hear about those small changes just as much as the big ones. I think we all get a sense of achievement when someone recognizes something that we've done, and perhaps a proper changelog from the beta would have been able to satisfy us a little bit more. I'm not saying that the post didn't give us some good information, but I'm a guy who really likes to know the ins and outs of the changes that have been made. I used to pore over the patch notes released alongside the Battlefield 4 updates, and I'll be doing exactly the same with Battlefield 1. I love to know what's changed to see if there's anything new that we can try out. But nonetheless, these high-level changes are welcome, and hopefully it makes Battlefield 1 even more fun at launch. Thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments down below and let me know what you think of these changes. and I'll be down there reading as many as I can. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.